Hey, good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. Good morning for those of you on the West Coast and out in the Pacific. Thank you for joining me today. We got a lot to cover, but one thing I wanted to just make sure that those of you in particular who are here early are hearing about is that we just dropped the August issue of the Small Business Specialist Directory. It's actually a directory of over 1,000 names of small business professionals in the federal space, as well as I think over 100 names of SBLOs, the Small Business Liaison Officers for the top large primes, generally the top 100 large primes. We also add extra value in there. So PCRs are in there, PTACs are in there, Women Business Center, Veteran Business Centers, what we call the 7 mentors. And so if you haven't downloaded that directory, go take a look at it and make sure you get a copy of it. You can download it directly from LinkedIn. I put a link to it at the beginning of the chat today. I don't know if you're able to see it there. You can also go to my profile and you'll find it there in many different spots, or you can go to govconchamber.com and you can find it there, download it. When you download it from the chamber, I ask for your name and an email address because there, if you give it to me, we'll let you know when new updates are available. So definitely make sure you download that. Looks like our content is good to go. I just want to turn off this graphic here. Let me turn that guy off. So there's that website I was mentioning, www.govconchamber.com. Let me just pull up my deck that I like to use as I'm talking to you each day and get started. If you don't know who I am, I'm Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. And I want to welcome you to my daily LinkedIn Live trainings where I teach you process and procedures for achieving success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people just like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. Process is A to Z and every step in between. When you follow a process, you'll achieve the success or the outcome that you want from that effort. So I'm pretty excited about today's process discussion or training, which is around how to find federal buyers. Before we get to that, can you do me a favor and help buyers and your fellow teammates and peers here in chat know who you are? Put your company name, your core competency using 2 or 3 words into the chat/comments area. Make it easy for me and them to remember who you are. Gus, I appreciate you dropping that link in there. Thank you. We got a good team going on. Let me just make sure my scrolling's off. Okay, we're good to go. So let's get into today's topic, which is how to find federal buyers. In our BD workshop, I guide customers through my 3-step process or approach to business development and capture. I call it VTO, visibility, targeting, and outreach. Visibility is making sure you look good to the buyers. Targeting is making sure you're finding the right people. And then outreach is really about picking up the phone, making sure you're picking up that phone and scheduling meetings. Today, we're going to talk about the targeting aspect of VTO. And so we're going to dive into that in some level of depth. I'm going to partly talk off of some slides to you here, and then I'm going to go in and share my screen. And I want to show you real world how I go find federal buyers and find information related to them. Before we get started, I do want to set the stage of, give you a little scenario about who I am as I'm going through this training, right? So I can't just go in and blindly train. So I need to give myself a little criteria or parameters for what I want to train you on. So I'm a business development person and I want to learn about an agency through buyers or talking with buyers. And so this is going to be a real example of a customer I have that I'm just taking their need, and with them, I'm teaching them how to do it, but I'm coming over here to you and I'm just doing it as if I'm them, as if I'm a BD person on their team. And so as we go forward and we think about, the scenario and what I'm trying to get done, I want to set a plan. If you're doing exercises around targeting is not about picking up the phone and calling. That's outreach on the VTO process. It's targeting is about basically building a list of 100, 200 names. Who should be on that list is what you need to plan out first before you even begin to start doing your research. So what agency do you want to reach out to, right? You need to think about that and focus down to one. You want to focus down tight on a subordinate command. Like, for example, in the Navy, you might shrink down to NAVC, or you can shrink down to a topic area or core competency. And so today, I'm going to choose Navy, and my second focus area will be SharePoint. And so in SharePoint, that's a particular Microsoft product or platform product that the Navy uses. I want to sell to them, and I'm just trying to learn more about who I can talk to in program offices. And by the way, when I say program office or when I say federal buyers, I mean both the program office generically, because there might be all sorts of people and I don't know exactly who the best people are yet. So a federal buyer could be the program office. And as I get even more zeroed down, it gets into the person. When I'm doing targeting, I'm going to have a whole bunch of people that I'll reach out to, but only a small portion of them will end up being those true long-term relationships I want to build around, in this scenario, Navy and SharePoint. So that's the stage, right? Is that I'm trying to identify people at the Navy, right? That's who I'm targeting. In targeting, and when I go after federal buyers can be in the acquisition side of the house or the requirement side of the house or the program office, right? Today, I'm not going to pay attention to the acquisition. I only want to show you program office so I can kind of keep my examples and my demonstrations pretty focused there. In this exercise, what I want to do is show you how I go forward, just even trying to find out who the buyer or the program office is. I don't know if you run into these situations. Actually, I'm not seeing her here yet, but maybe you commented earlier, Rafa. But like Rafa does construction, and she has a specialty in elevators, for example. Well, when I'm looking for a program office as a company that sells elevator services and products, how do I find out who's buying those in an agency, right? So who's the program office? I'm doing that scenario today with SharePoint. I want to find out who the program office is. And then I also want to find out the names of people, their phone numbers, and their email addresses. These are really important because when you have these for business development, it allows you to begin to develop those relationships with leads, which lead to opportunities. When you do this in Capture, it allows you to start digging in deeper to the requirements, to ask questions, begin to maybe shape the opportunity, et cetera. So today's scenario, I'm going to be focusing on finding the names of program offices or the name, and then who are the people, and then how do I find their email address and phone numbers? Because that's what I want you to be able to do, right? You have to pick up the phone and call somebody. How do you find out who to call? And then how do you get their contact information? Those are really two big hurdles a lot of us face every day with government contracting. And those are what I want to try to address. I got a checklist here that I want to talk to you about before I jump into the sharing my screen and walking through for the bulk of this training today. I wanted to give you 10 ways that you could find federal buyers. I'm going to bounce around in some of these. I'm not necessarily using it in an organized way, but the number one way that I'm using is actually the number 10 option for you is Google, right? Just go onto Google. And so I'll show you in a minute how I love just starting with Google because it really gives me a good jumping off point. But 10 places that you can go to find federal buyers. Number one, agency websites, right? On an agency website, you can find strategic documents that talk a lot about things. You can find org charts. We were looking at, Gus was pulling up just all these org charts in HHS for those companies who are looking to sell to HHS. We have a lot of content we want to share out there that helps you do some of your homework, but names and numbers and email addresses are all available often on websites. So that's one place. Next place is Fpds. And Fpds, the Federal Procurement Database System, you can find previous awards in there that list two big pieces of information for federal buyers. One is it'll list program offices. And when I say it'll list program offices, it's a couple different ways, right? Everything requires a little bit of effort. I'm not trying to help you make millions of dollars in federal revenue with no effort, right? So you got to put effort in. But when you go into Fpds and you bring up an opportunity that you wish you had won, right? Something that was awarded that you wish you had won, you can find in there an acquisition person, top right-hand corner. Coming down, you can see who the funding office is, program office, et cetera. But you can follow that thread all the way back into SAM and find the solicitation documentation where you find the PWS, et cetera. And in those documentation, or in that documentation, you'll see sections like background where they'll talk about the actual program office needs to do this kind of work. And so we're looking for people who can support it. So you have this ability to use Fpds to thread back and see what program offices are buying stuff. And when you find that, then you're able to go back onto Google or whatever and dig deeper. The other thing on Fpds that you can find, which is great, are vendors. So if somebody won a contract you wish you had won, well, you can look and pull their contact information, go search Fpds again on just that company's cage code or UEI. And when you do, you'll see all the places they might have won. So it's a great way to just find information on Fpds about maybe where your competitors are winning. And by finding out where they're winning, now you might start seeing program offices that you can pursue. The next one is industry briefs. So the government often has industry days. Some agencies are better than others, but in industry days, you might see a forecast of opportunities. You might see an org chart here as well. But often, and I've put out several posts just in the last couple of weeks, you should take a look at, that just list out key points of contact. Who's the program manager? Who's the primary liaison with industry, et cetera. So when you find this information, you're able to get at least the name, if not emails and phone numbers. And then, if you don't get the emails, you have to dig a little further on the internet. Conferences, another great place. I have friends going to a conference tomorrow, and they're down there for a couple of days. And in that conference, they're going to be meeting people and talking to people. Well, that's a perfect way to find federal buyers, whether you find them directly or whether you find people that you can say, well, who is the federal buyer? Or in my scenario, who's doing SharePoint, et cetera. So conferences, LinkedIn, the same way. I don't want to talk too long about this because I really want to share my screen in a minute, but LinkedIn, huge wealth of information on LinkedIn. This ability to, you'll see that I use it to find people after I know their names. I can go dig them a little bit further, but also I can use people I find and follow a thread. Or if in the Navy, I find, hey, this program office does something, I can go find everybody who's connected to that program office. So there's a lot in there. There's also all sorts of posts, and these are content that people put out on LinkedIn. Some content are strategic plans or strategic documents. Other contents are, hey, I just won this big SharePoint contract. I'm like, thank you. Where'd you win it? The next group dives into 6, 7, and 8, dive into the 7 mentors that I was talking about. So small business professionals, I already told you, download the August version of our small business directory, and you'll get 1,000 of those people. PCRs, the procurement center representatives that work for the SBA, these people know all the contracting officers for most of the agencies that are out there, certainly any that are awarding contracts at a certain level. PTACs, if you do not have a regular relationship, and I don't care if you're a $50 million firm, if you don't have a regular monthly point of contact with your PTAC counselor, then you're missing out on somebody who wants you to succeed and is willing to help within their limits. And their limits are pretty big. They can help a lot. For example, perhaps tell you about an agency buyer, et cetera, or contracting officer. The last one, I already told you about Google search, so that's number 10. Last one is number 9, which is interviews. So find people who are doing interviews, and I'll show you this in a minute, but they interview on podcasts, YouTube, Gov Matters TV. If you don't know what that is, go find out. But these people are out there doing interviews and talking about what you sell or the problems that your solutions address. So find those interviews that are happening and listen to them and use them as a way to find more federal buyers. So I can put this together as a handout if you want the 10 ways and get it out to you. So if you want that, just let me know, like 10 ways to find federal buyers handout. Somebody figure out how to do a shorter acronym, but I'm going to jump to the next part that I want. I'm happy to give it to you. I just want to get the content to you. So I'm going to share my screen. And by the way, if you haven't been here before, this is a fire hose of information. It's solid training. I'm giving you sometimes often days of training pushed into 30 minutes. But it is solid training designed specifically to give you hows. I really want to give you the how part. So I'm sharing my screen now. You should be looking at YouTube. And I just want to let you know, all of you are at different levels. But when I'm talking to a particular person, I just want to assume you're right where I'm at. If I'm talking a little above you, don't worry. I'll come down and try to clarify it. If I'm talking a little below where you might be at, don't worry. You're going to get a tip out of this. You might not get 10 tips that matter, but maybe 3 are new to you. So it's valuable to all of you. The first thing I'm mentioning is that everything I'm about to show you just came from one search on Navy with SharePoint in quotations, which means I must see SharePoint with the word Navy in here to be able to see the results. when I get a search like this, and I know I'm moving really fast, but just, you can watch this again, but I'm looking for anywhere they mention SharePoint in the Navy so I can follow this thread. I'm not going to scroll through this because I already have the tabs open, as you can see. But, one of the first ones I clicked on was this one here. And I don't actually know where it's at, but it's like Navy Advanced Placement. It might be it's a Navy forum for enlisted reserve veterans, etc. So it's like it's a forum for people who are tied to the Navy. But somewhere in here, they did a flank speed update. And I happen to know this, but flank speed is another way of saying SharePoint in the Navy. It's the name of their program. But as I come in here, all I want to show you is I'm looking for federal buyers, right? So I don't want to go too far into the content. But what I did is I came down here, and the first thing I saw is, well, here's this guy, Andre, and I might be pronouncing his name incorrectly since there is a J at the end of that. But here's his phone number and here's his email address, right? And they put it in such a way, see the @ they put it in a way so that maybe malware or whatever they call bots can't come in and crawl it, but you can look at it and go, oh, I see his email address, his phone number, and you'll see more about this guy in a second. But I want to make sure that this guy is relevant. So as I'm coming down, I'm looking at it, talking about Office 365, which again is another way of me knowing that this is about SharePoint, because SharePoint is under Office 365. But as I come down, I'm able to learn a lot about what they're doing. Here's the status of SharePoint, right? Think about if you're doing elevator construction. Here's the status of energy efficiency when you do the right searches. So I'm able to look down and I can see certain terms that make me want to go, that give me homework to go follow up, right? The Navy Marine Corps intranet. Like, okay, what is that? Who owns it? I've got that as an action item in my head that I want to go search that. And maybe if I search that instead of SharePoint, I start finding points of contact of who run this, etc. Down below, I can just start seeing a lot of key information about what's in here and where they're going with it. So it's a great thing. And I notice at the bottom, it's this communication was coming out from the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations for Information Warfare. So NAVWAR is an area I want to pay attention to. But what I decided is this guy seemed like a good point of contact. So I'm following his thread, right? I'm looking for federal buyers. I went and looked for him on the internet, couldn't really find anything until I realized I misspelled his name. Apologize. But when I found him, I realized he's a requirements specialist. He's in here in the space that I'm looking for. And I don't want to go too far, but I can see that he's in here as part of the information technology, cybersecurity world. He is absolutely somebody I want to reach out to and call. So I'm looking for federal buyers. By the way, quick pause. When I do a workshop with people, it's a 6-month workshop. And so this targeting that I'm doing in like 15 minutes is done over a couple of weeks as we're building a list of names to call during the outreach, VTO, right? And so in here, I'm going to come back here and make sure I write this guy's name, email, and phone number down, and I'm going to keep moving on. So then as I keep going through my thread, I've got more information. CHIPS is this technology. By the way, if you're selling the Navy and you don't know what CHIPS is or are, they're newsletters and the Department of Navy's Information Technology magazine. So make sure you're subscribing to it. It comes out with all sorts of great information. But what I'm able to do is to see something like this tool. And I want to just scroll down a little bit where as I'm coming down, I'm looking for people who might be in certain offices that could matter to me that I could follow. So in this case, I'm just seeing that this is the guy I'm looking for. And right now, he's currently detailed over to the CIO's office. This is perfect, right? If he can't help me directly, like if he doesn't do SharePoint himself, he might go, you know what, you need to talk to these people or those people. So now I've got that person. A whole separate link that I had. So that was one Google thread that I did that led me to multiple tabs. Another one is this job posting. So this one is on some like Dice, right? If you're familiar with job boards. This one is on Dice, and I can see it's a SharePoint Online developer. And as I come in, this is another approach for me to try to reach where I'm going. So in this particular case, Strategic Insight is looking for a SharePoint Online developer. Hey, that's what my company does. You know, let me dig further into this. Maybe I can become a subcontractor with these people. I wonder what they do, right? And so one of my first things I want to do is come over here to look in DSBS. And when I come down here, I'm going really fast again. I go into the NAICS codes, I can see right on this right-hand side that this company is not a small business. That means they probably have some obligation to be or desire to be working with smalls who can provide help. And when I go into strategic insights, I can, I looked at their website, I'm able to look at it and go, their focus is not SharePoint at all. Their focus is actually really impressive on the things that they're doing. Just if you haven't seen these guys, and I never knew who they were, go take a look at their site. Great video that introduces what they do. But what I'm able to do is to see, I want to sell to the Navy SharePoint solutions, whatever it is my company does. I'm able to look here at where they've worked and see that they're working with a lot of key people that I would love to go talk with. And so this is a little different approach for me, but it allows me to sit there and maybe reach out to them and see if they can introduce me to buyers in this space that are doing SharePoint. So I talked earlier about, let me come back here to the top. I talked earlier about looking for videos or interviews, etc. If you haven't been on the Defense Visual Information site, DVID site, I've been on this thing for, I feel like it's more than 10 years. I'd be curious on how long it's been going. But this site has so much great information, pictures, videos, documents, etc. And so, it's defense source of great information. If you're in that space, you need to pay attention. But when I did my search, it came up with this kind of information, and I'm able to start exploring this thread. And I don't want to read it all to you, but by reading this all, I can see how they're locking in some of their major initiatives and where SharePoint might lay in as a base. And what I'm getting are people's contact information. So here's Pete Locklear over in SFIO, and I can either try to call Pete or find his, or I can use this because I've learned that I think it's Navifor, but these guys are using SharePoint. I can follow back up and begin to talk to them. They also talked a little farther down here about SharePoint, where they talk about the whole SharePoint portal, and they start giving me more names that are in here, or names of program office type folks and programs themselves that I can dig into. But the SFIO team, it's a place I'm going to go figure out, because at the very least, even if they're not an expert in SharePoint, they can tell me, who supports them. Then I can get to that office. And that's a big thread of finding a program office. So another one that I was looking at, this one's Amenum. This company is in the top 5. I think it's the number 2 government contractor, in the large government contractor, and certainly on the services side, right? But these guys had an article about some of the stuff they were doing that I found on my Google search, quick search. And when I came in, I'm able to see that, for example, where are they? Down here, they developed a SharePoint-based process for Spectrum supportability risk assessments, whatever that is. What this tells me is that this organization, remember, I like targeting large primes, small primes, and federal agencies when I go in, 3 ways of going after federal revenue. Well, this tells me that these people need some level of SharePoint expertise because they see the value of it to their customer. And so it tells me I want to go in and perhaps knock on Amenum's door. But even more than that, from a federal buyer's standpoint, I can look down here and see some of the commands. So I can't remember where it was at, but if I start looking, here it is, Naval Information Warfare Development Center. So when I look at that, I can see that these people use SharePoint in their day-to-day world. If I know that we can come in and develop solutions that will help with the mission or the day-to-day business operations, then these people might be a good one for me to start getting in and knocking on doors. Understand that business development and capture require legwork. It's about going out and knocking on doors, true sales. If all I'm doing is looking at SAM and pulling an opportunity out, or I'm looking at Seaport Next Gen and pulling an opportunity out, all I'm doing is writing orders. Even if it's called a proposal, it's still just order writing. Sales is when you do things like this with business development, where you don't have the answer, but you're going out and you're establishing a new relationship, right? That outreach, and you're developing that into an opportunity, which leads to a proposal, which leads to sales. So these people reaching out to the Naval Information Warfighting Development Center seems like yet another place I can go. And by the way, I'm not done, right? I wouldn't just go there. I would go and try to just search on that term on Google and see what else is there. So there's 3 articles. I just want to show you really quick because my time flies. But here's the Navy CIO, right? So Aaron Weiss, and he's got 3 articles that I found one after the other. This is the first one I found, which is an interview talking to him about the DoD Cloud Exchange and what they're doing with pilots in here and somewhere down here on this is the one that caught my eye, right? That begins to take me to the next level of understanding program offices is they have a 3-pronged effort. I'm like, oh, curious, what's that, right? And as I, excuse me, pursue that further, here I can look at the names that they have. So let me just find this really quick. So Operation Flank Speed is the part about, they're talking about going to SharePoint. That's what I want. Who's doing that? Who's in charge of it? The next one that's down here is called Operation Cattle Drive. And this is about applications that are out there like homegrown apps or mission critical apps, whatever they are, beginning to move them forward and slaughter them at the end or migrate them to the cloud. Those are my words. And then whatever the last one was Supernova. And so this is more. Well, now I have 3 terms that I can go look for which program offices are running these, which primes are in there that I can talk to. And then this last one that came from it is this Navy's transformation to modern service delivery. It gives me the same kind of information where they're talking about flank speed. That means they're talking about SharePoint. They're talking about what I want to learn. By coming in through these articles, I can identify program offices or key program names, which will lead me to people. One of the key things to remember as we go forward on all of this is it all came from this search, Navy SharePoint. I haven't even begun to get creative yet on what's in there. So let me just find a couple others. Here's another one, just so you know that you can get information out of weird things. This one here is basically about a protest, right? So the Navy's told to do a integrity investigation of a deal. Well, this tells me that there's these 2 huge firms, when I read this article, that are arguing over a BPA that's related to Microsoft products, which also includes SharePoint. Well, now I know I want to go in and find, who's awarding this contract? Where is it being awarded out of? That maybe I can use that as a path to get to another program office. Can I meet people at Dell and this other company? I can't remember what they were, but Dell Services is in. They're somebody I could do business with. And then the last one here is just another article that's coming out where it's talking about allowing collaboration that's out there. This is what my firm does in my scenario, right? I begin to see who's in there. This particular one is an interview where they're talking about how it's going to move forward over the next 5-10 years, because it's a huge transition. No matter how fast they want to go, it's a huge transition. One of the things that I noticed that I'm not having enough time for, and I'll include it as maybe a little separate video, is how do you find the emails and phone numbers? Because that's pretty easy for me to do right out of this. And so after this, a little later today, what I'll try to do is grab 3 names that I talked about and come back and show you the process that I use on the internet to finding their contact information, because I know that's something you really want as well. So this is a massive fire hose. I get it. I can see myself, a little out of breath from talking so fast, but I hope it made sense. If it did, by the way, give it a thumbs up. And if you would like, I see people saying the handout, if you would like those 10 ways that you can find federal buyers, let me know and just put 10-way handout. Thanks for whoever got that going. And I'll throw that together a little later today. Gus or I will, and we'll get that out. But one thing I want you to remember as you think about anything you're trying to do in business development and capture, it begins with this process I call VTO, visibility, targeting, and outreach. And that effort will lead you to the relationships, which will lead you to the sales that you want to get. Hope it all made sense again. Give it a thumbs up if it did. Remember, government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next event.